Welcome back inside the Brooklyn Boardroom, a business bootcamp where we go behind the curtain and off script with foot soldiers and stakeholders in media, tech, and entertainment. And today's heavyweight I have with me is the amazing Lisa Atia, growth strategist, MBA. Ta-da!
Heavyweight.
Heavyweight. Well, no, you heavy.
I like that.
Yeah, you're heavy in the game, Lisa. I've looked at your resume. I know your credentials, and I'm very, very impressed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I guess we should spend a minute since I've bigged you up like that. Spend a minute talking a little bit about your background. So the reason why I say Lisa is a heavyweight because she spent over 12 years growing, scaling Fortune 500 companies. To name a few, Microsoft, McDonald's, Lionsgate, and even small digital media companies like Blavity. Those of you watching this would probably know Blavity. It's a publishing platform in the Afro-American space or African-American space. So Lisa, we're happy to have you here at the Brooklyn Boardroom.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell me again, where are you from?
Yeah, so I grew up between Gardena and Torrance.
Gardena and Torrance. And what part of LA is that?
It's like the South Bay.
The South Bay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Near the ocean.
Kind of, sort of.
Kinda,
so
sorta.
Gardena is just south of Inglewood. So
Inglewood, that helps.
Yeah.
Or again, the folks probably watching this have my complexion, I'm assuming. So when they hear Inglewood, I think I'm gonna get some props, all right? So near Inglewood.
yes, near Inglewood.
Near
Used to
Inglewood.
go to the Forum, watch
Got
the
it.
Lakers.
Got it.
all that good stuff.
And
Yeah.
did you say you affiliated with Crips? Blood? What you say?
I never said that.
I'm just teasing
Don't
you.
be putting it out there like
no,
that.
I'm just making sure. Listen,
But we
this is
did
neutral
grow up on
territory.
the block.
Oh,
so,
really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad to see you made it out. You know what I mean? Obviously, you've achieved great things, and here you are giving back to the people, right? So,
For sure.
so you know about the show. I've explained to you kind of what we focus on here is kind of providing a bit of a primer for folks who want to
Yep.
enter into various aspects of business. In this case, we want to focus on the theme of the day is how to build and scale a business, right?
Okay.
So the questions, we're going to go through, we're going to first kind of lay that foundation and inform people of kind of what the landscape is like, and then we'll go deeper into kind of how to move in these streets, right, more or less. And for those just tuning in who don't know kind of my, my little tricks in this show, I have this sound that I play. There it is. Boy, listen, I gotta rep BK all day, you heard? So that's just
I
say,
can't be mad at it.
yeah, if you hear that, Lisa, you just dropping bombs. We need to focus and pull up on what you're talking about
Okay.
because I want people to pay attention.
You call those metrics.
Call those metrics.
Call it metrics. So if I'm doing really well,
I
that's a
see.
metric of
I
me
see.
doing really well. So I'm
See?
going to keep that in mind.
You just taking over. You jumping way ahead, Lisa, but it's okay. I appreciate
I gotta
that.
help you out.
I like that enthusiasm. Listen, and I need some help from time to time.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into this thing here. So I'm gonna part of this conversation. I'm gonna do a Farsi. I think you're fluent, right?
In Arabic, but not Farsi.
No, I'm just teasing. I knew you spoke, a Sanskrit language. I couldn't remember which one.
Yeah.
Arabic. So you mind if I get into my Arabic with you a little bit?
Do you know Arabic? This
I
would
know.
be the first time I heard.
Assalamu alaikum. Hamdulillah. Hamdulillah. Right, so anyway, we'll save that for another conversation
All right.
in the Middle East. Anyway, so let's get started. So understanding the fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
So what would you consider the anatomy of every Fortune 500 company? Like every Fortune 500 business, kind of like what are the major parts and components that make that business operate? Because I want people to think of it in the context of the business they're looking to start, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of those first things you identify as the anatomy, and then things that you focus on to get started?
So I think there's a difference that you have to look at. Like what makes up a Fortune 500 company isn't going to be what makes up a startup, right? So in order to get to the Fortune 500 place, you have to really understand like what your value proposition is.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you do really well that nobody else in the market can do, and what pain points is it really alleviating? So there's this book, it's called Start With Why, and it talks about there's 3 circles, these 3 concentric circles. So in the middle is your purpose, it's your why, it's why should anybody care about what you're doing. Outside of that is the how, so what differentiates you, how do you do it different than anybody else? And then outside of that is the what, that basically encompasses those 2 circles, and that's what are you really doing, right? And so once you really understand what you are as a company, what you do really well, then you're able to have this idea of going out into the marketplace and where is it that we want to spend our money, our time, how we want to market ourselves, how we want to position ourselves in the market. And so Fortune 500 companies, I feel like, do this really well because they know their customers, especially. And that was another thing that I think is really important, especially as a startup, that you understand. So why are you laughing
I'm
at
laughing
me?
because this is great stuff. I really appreciate it. I want to go back though. I want to go back.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go with these concentrics.
I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just
it's
gonna
all
keep
good,
going.
and I'm gonna keep
Okay.
stopping you when I want to focus.
Okay.
Because I think you were doing a great job explaining how to get started. You said
Yeah.
concentric circles. The name of the book was
Start with why.
Start with why, and the focus was identifying these 3 circles.
Yes, correct.
And the first circle was what?
Your why.
Your why.
Your
Why?
purpose.
Your purpose. Like, why are you entering into this sector of business? Is that?
No, it's the why is why are you doing what you're doing? So, for
What's the
example,
motivation for you to do what you're
why
doing?
does anybody care?
Why does
Like,
anyone care about
yeah.
you starting an ice cream stand or starting a digital media company or
Exactly.
starting an advertisement? Why do
Yeah.
people care?
Exactly.
Got
So let's take the ice cream example,
Yeah.
right? Your why should be inspirational. So the why is because we create creamy ice cream for these young kids who look to hold on to this idea of childhood the rest of their lives. We want to be that one that creates this really just enjoyable space where they can go into and just be a kid for just that moment.
I love how you just, off top of the dome, you just put that out there. Hold up a second. You can sell ice cream too. Yeah, that's
What, I got it.
No, that was great though. That was a great illustration. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the why. And then what was
Okay.
the second phase?
So then outside of that circle, right?
Mhm.
The next circle is the how. So how do you do it different? Well, you know what? We were the first ones to do the ice cream truck. You remember the ice cream truck?
Of course.
Yeah. So, and everybody had an ice cream truck, but ours had the music. We were playing Kendrick down the block, right?
Wow.
So we do it different because we're associating music and arts and culture of the community and the communities that we serve with this idea and this value of, oh, this is bringing me back to my childhood.
This is a great illustration. Okay. And then the third phase was what?
Is the what.
Is
like,
the
what
what.
do you actually do? We serve ice cream cones, we serve popsicles, and we make them all in-house.
I love that. And that's what you, before, so for those of you who are listening to this or watching this, who've yet to put pen to paper, this is where you need to begin,
Yep.
right? This is the
Absolutely.
first step. Okay, so you've identified the why, you've identified the how, you've identified the what.
Yep.
All on, you all wrote it down or put it on the iPad or whatever. What's usually the next step that you need to take before you jump deep into investing in this new business endeavor?
Yeah, so you need to identify who your user is. So we like to say create a user persona. So there's actually, you can actually go online and Google how to create a user persona.
When you say user, though, is that synonymous with client or customer?
Yeah, and I want to be careful because actually I know I've just had this conversation that the term user, client, customer is actually triggering for some people.
Oh yeah, for folks who are probably outside the tech space, I think you're thinking about tech. For the
Yeah.
everyday people, and dudes on the block, users have a whole different connotation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I want to be clear about that. So when we talk about user, put it in brackets. So user
Okay.
meaning whoever your end customer is that's going to be using your product.
Got it.
Right? So think about it that way. User equals using your product.
I see. Okay. I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking about drug paraphernalia, but
No, but it's
but
true.
that's not. Yeah.
That's exactly the trigger that it brings up for a lot of people.
Interesting.
So that aside,
Okay.
that's a whole other conversation,
for sure.
right? So creating a user persona, you really have to identify who, get in your mind an actual person. And so how I like to do it is I like to give them a name. So let's do it for the ice cream truck, right? So Mary is a 12-year-old girl, right? You have to identify her demographics. So demographics are age, ethnicity, household income, right? So that of her parents, how much money she makes if she does make it,
Okay.
what she does for a living, right? Then you go into psychographics. And so when psychographics really define how somebody moves, their personality, what their attitudes are, what they enjoy, what they don't, things that...
Those personality traits. Yeah. Those
exactly.
traits. Yeah. Characteristics.
So, and then there's also the piece of, I'm trying to think, there's another quadrant that talks about how, and when I think quadrant, I basically I write it down on a sheet of paper, and I create just a table, right?
Okay.
Like a T.
Okay.
And then in each section, you put who this user is, so their demographics, psychographics, and then how they're actually going to use your product.
Interesting.
So when you put this together, it creates a user persona. So Mary is 12 years old. She goes to school. She walks to school with her best friend in the morning. You know, she really likes to study science. When she's digging on this dude at school who thinks science is cool. So she walks home, and she's really like looking forward to her afternoon snack. Usually her mom isn't home, so she lays out food for her in the kitchen. Ice cream for her is a treat. So when she hears the ice cream truck, it creates this nostalgia for her. So she's gonna go out, and hopefully she'll have some extra money. Maybe her mom gives her a couple dollars for lunch, and she saved it that day. So she does it on purpose, maybe once a week, or on Fridays she goes out and knows that the ice cream truck, and that's going to be her treat, right? So that's her behavior.
Interesting. Well, the thing that's obvious that I'm picking up is that clearly, you know, the user, the customer, the client, you have to put yourself in their brain and like really live out that experience to truly understand who you are focusing your product on,
and how they're using it,
and how they're consuming your product. You just described you gave us an entire narrative of this little girl that we've never met. You created her out of the blue because she's your user, and you have to think about her 360 life. What's her allowance? You know, like you said, you know, disposable income. You know, how does she get to school? When does she use the product? When is she consuming the ice cream? That's fascinating. I've never heard that example given. That's a really great way to really begin to understand intimately your user, right?
Yeah. And then from that point, then you can learn how you're going to actually market to them, because without that piece, you don't know at what point they are interacting with your product. Is she interacting with it at school? Is she watching the ice cream truck go by, or is she going out to it, right?
Interesting.
Is she watching it on Twitter? Do I have a Twitter feed of where my ice cream truck is going to be? So you know that that's where she spends most of her time, or is it on Instagram? So you know that then you should let people know on Instagram versus Twitter where you're going to be as an ice cream truck. Like, that's how you have targeted marketing.
Okay, so you've done the first phase of understanding why, how, and all of that stuff. Now you're understanding your user, client, customer, you know, the psychographics, personality traits. You've done all of that. And again, in doing all this, you haven't probably spent a dime yet. This is just you with your notepad in the kitchen, writing it down, Googling. What tends to be the next critical step?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's hard because it depends on what it is. If it's a product, then you want to start like creating the product, right? If it's a service, then you test it. And you test to see like on maybe one person. Maybe it's even with the ice cream truck that you test it on your parents, your sisters. Then you go out to your cousins and your friends. And if you tend to see that it's getting the reaction that you think it deserves, then you tend to, and this is what happens in tech all the time, right? Like, you create a test and then you kind of make it bigger from there. Then you'll put more money into marketing. I want
to stop you there, right? Because now we're getting to the proof of concept phase of things, and that's when usually you got to start spending some money.
Yes.
Right? And this is what divides people and separates the world of people with resources versus people who don't have resources, people with access to capital versus people who don't have access to capital. So we got to
hold on, but I think there's something before there. There's actually a step before that keeps people from actually doing it.
Okay.
And like going deep for a minute, it's that sense of fear, right? Or it's this sense of, I don't have the access, like I'm not a white boy from Stanford that can go out and raise money, or that can even like spend $1,000 to create this product, right? And so I think there's this innate fear, especially like in the Black and brown communities, about us feeling like, well, we don't know what else to do, and there's not really anybody else out there to help us because they don't get it. So I'm just going to kind of keep it where it is. Like my Lyft driver the other day, she was telling me, oh yeah, like, you know, I started this app and, you know, then I created this website and I went through GoDaddy, but something happened and they ended up giving my money back, and then I just stopped because I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know what else to do. And I think it's that not knowing piece that stops people, but I think the underlying piece of that is the fear of I just don't I don't think I can make it anyway. Like I don't really believe enough in myself, and it really takes somebody who's self-aware enough to be able to say that and to admit that, because once you admit it, then you actually have to do something about it.
Yeah, no, you touched on something that's very important. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I don't think I would have instinctively focused on that, because, you know, it's easy not to think about something that you don't factor into your analysis. It's not relevant, right? But for a lot of people, fear of the unknown, fear or insecurity about their ability to execute on this, whatever the endeavor is, can be crippling, and and then they get stuck in their kitchen, right? So
it did for me too. For years. Like I'm just like everybody else, in that it happened to me for years too.
But we have a solution.
Always.
So
there's always a way.
Well, one in particular.
Okay.
When you talk to the next Lyft driver, tell them the solution is, you need to tune into this podcast. All right, this is what we're trying to do. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to break down barriers.
But you're right. Like, you have to have these conversations so that people don't feel like they're the only one.
Exactly. No, we're here here to give voice to the voiceless.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
That's real.
But I'm glad you pointed that out, and we're going to go deeper into that in a separate conversation.
I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, talking to me about the other stuff. So okay, so now proof of concept. You've done all your research. You've got all your data. You kind of like your notepad is filled. You know, you're ready to get started, and you know the resources you have at your disposal will not be enough to finance that prototype if it's a product or whatever it is, right? So now you begin to think about, so where do I find the resources? You know, I've heard about all these different concepts of, you know, venture capitalists, business accelerators, and that's a good, you know, vibe for me, right? We can get back to the emotional space. Venture capitalists, business accelerators, angel investors. So help us understand what does all that lexicon mean, like in the world of the entrepreneur, and how do we properly, you know, how do we properly assess and utilize those various potential resources?
Yeah, so the one thing that I want to point out is all of that stuff is just fancy terms for things that we instinctively do.
Yes. Let's do look.
But it's real, right?
Because it's real. Fancy words that confuse people.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
What we call and that's like the white supremacy ideal, right? And that's something that, again, like,
white supremacy. Uh-oh.
No.
It ain't my advertisers. I do not represent what was said in this.
Okay, let me stop.
We know white supremacy exists. I'm just teasing you.
But no, I mean white supremacy ideals, and that these were created as barriers, right? For the Black and brown communities to feel like, well, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't even know what, you know? So it stops you. Yeah. And that's a real thing in the industry, quite honestly. But what we call entrepreneurship, like, where I grew up, we call it hustling. Like, that's what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so there's all these fancy words for venture capital and angel investors, which really just means getting money to grow a business, right? Like, it's simple terms. Exactly. And so, you know, you start to hear about all these different terms like angel investors. There's two camps, right, of angel investors. So I'm just going to go into it real quick so your viewers know.
Oh. Please.
So angel investors sometimes are thought of as like your family and friends who are putting in money, like, hey dad, like, I got this great ice cream truck idea. Here you go. Like, here's a bill for it, right? It can be as small as $100. Like, that's still considered angel investing. You putting your own money in, right? Like, you're in that camp. So the other part, or the other camp, is wealthy individuals who tend to write checks for like $25,000 up to $100,000. That space, that part of your business and where it's in at that point, like as you're starting to get into proof of concept, is called the seed stage. So you're developing, you're like tweaking it. It's not really working in this way.
And these people who are making investment at the seed stage also fit under the category of angel investor?
Yeah, they
Okay.
are. They are. There are also venture capitalists. So venture capitalists traditionally write much larger checks, and there is a group of them involved. And so there are, under venture capitalists, there are limited partners. So limited partners are basically the dudes that put the money into this company that then funds the startup. Right?
So the demarcation between angel investor and venture capitalist usually has to do with the amount of investment and how sophisticated the investor is, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Generally speaking, right? So when you hear those terms, you think angel investor, you guys should invoke the thought of somebody's friend, somebody's mom, somebody's cousin, whatever. And then venture capitalist is a sophisticated investor, probably investing a large sum of money, anywhere between probably 100,000 and upwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is that space between $100 and $100,000 that are angel investors. Now, there could be really sophisticated angel investors. So, somebody could have hit the jackpot and won the lottery and decided they wanted to start investing in tech startups, right? So they could write a check and not know any more about the business than you, but they really believe in you, they believe in the idea, and so they're willing to put their money on the line.
Now, when you contrast angel investors and the venture capitalists, is their investment both based on some type of return on investment, generally speaking?
Well, in the tech world, when you invest in a company, you like to see returns of like 10x, right? 10 times the amount that you put in. And
so that's a starting point.
No. What I'm saying is that amount is what these venture capitalists are hoping to get. But that's jackpot money. That's like 1 in every 5,000 companies, or I actually don't even know what that ratio is. But what I'm trying to get to the point of saying is 10x is like the Googles, are the companies that hit it really big. Most companies that actually do provide a return, maybe it's 1 time the money, maybe it's 3 times the money. Even that's really doing really well in the marketplace.
Okay, but there isn't any from what you understand, is there any type of threshold where a venture capitalist will say, well, I like your idea, but my projections, my research indicates that I'm only going to make maybe 10% of what I've invested, 5%,
then they'd never
15%.
Yeah.
It's not worth it for them.
It's absolutely not worth it.
So that's my ultimate question. For it to be worth it to a venture capitalist, the investment has to look at least like it's going to yield what type of return?
Right.
At least, at the very least.
Yeah.
What would that be?
I mean, 3x.
3 times their investment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even that's being like, they wouldn't necessarily put their money in if they only thought they would get 3x.
Got it.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Because venture capitalists will only invest in companies in which they see three things really. It's the founding team. So do they have domain expertise? Meaning, do you know what you're doing? Like, if you are building an ice cream truck, are you have you made ice cream before? Are you really good at it? Like, is this a recipe that's coming from your grandma's grandma?
Okay.
Right? Does the founding team have like their own lane? Like, are you the CTO, the technology guy, and can I be the marketer? Like, making sure that there are complementary skills there. Right? Okay. And that there's just like that X factor. Like, they just vibe really well as a founding team, and that they have the grit, that thing that's going to get things done when everything hits the fan. Okay. The other thing that they are looking at as investors is the market opportunity so big that they know that they're going to get this huge return, right? And so that's really where the potential. Exactly. Yeah. So let's go over that again. I think it's important people understand that. So when they're being assessed by a venture capitalist, or even just maybe even an angel investor who's sophisticated, the analysis, the vetting is going to start with, number one, do you know what you're doing? And do you have a team to execute on what you're doing, right?
which is a hint, it's a signal for those of you that are listening to this and maybe have part of the solution. You may need to partner with other people so you can make a strong business case for why you're credible in this space.
Yep.
The second thing you mentioned, not the second thing you mentioned, not the same order, but what is the market cap? What is the potential of this business opportunity, right? Is it limitless? Is it limited? And if it's limited, by how much? Because that may discourage a potential investment, right?
Yep.
Then I think the third thing you mentioned was this domain concept, right?
Domain expertise.
Yeah. Are you like, do you know this space better than most people in it, right? Are you really, really like just brilliant in the area you're doing business in? Do you have the talent?
That's key, right? Like why are you better positioned than anybody else that they know to run this business? What is it about your expertise as a marketer or as a tech guy that makes you better than 99% of the population?
Interesting. Yeah. So now you've passed that vetting. The venture capitalist is like, yo, okay, you guys are on fire. I trust you. I like what you guys are doing. Here's some seed funding, right? And whatever that amount of money is. And then what tends to be the next step, or what tends to be the next step? Because how does that fit in? And also within the context of a business accelerator, explain that nuance as well.
Yeah, so accelerators are interesting because they can come before the seed funding, right? Or it could come while some investors. So venture capital firms tend to sometimes they have these accelerators, and basically it's this. You can think about it as like a company under the venture capital firm that helps accelerate their growth. So they give access to resources. So if you're not a numbers guy, they bring somebody in that can help you with the financials and financial projections. They can help you with finding space. Like if you need a manufacturing space, they help you find that, right? Those are incubators that give you these resources. Accelerators basically take you through this program. So it's like it's like maybe 3-month program. And you're like you're creating your business model. You're actually growing your business under the watch of this accelerator, and they're helping you throughout the steps. So it's like a business boot camp.
Got it.
And so typically at the end of that, there's like a demo day, a pitch day, and that's when there's like a whole bunch of investors, and they'll look to see if they want to invest in you at that point.
Now, every business doesn't need an incubator or an accelerator. It all just depends on where you're at in your business. I mean, what we would assume is if you're creating a business from scratch and don't have the resources to really leverage that business, then you're going to want the benefit of these resources, incubators, to kind of like help you, give you the pieces that you don't have to operate your business, and accelerators to help you really move quickly to market and attract more investment.
Yeah, and even visibility too. Like if you have never been in the tech game and you don't have any, access to funders, you wouldn't even know where to start. This is a really great place to create visibility and to start creating those relationships in the industry.
And just for clarity's sake, typically in exchange for these type of resources and all this apparatus, you give up ownership, right?
You sure do.
You give up probably a significant chunk of ownership.
Yeah. So one of the things that I also want to mention, there's so many caveats, right, sure, to venture capital investing. We typically see when we go and look for money for our business, we want to take the first check, like the first person that says yes, cool, let's get it done, I got some money, right? But you have to vet them the same way that they're vetting you, because it really does become this very intimate relationship where they're owning a part of your business, and they will have say over how you manage it and how you grow it. And so you really have to be careful about who you're getting in bed with, because these are the people that...
Wait, did you just say Did you just say colonialism? Is that what you just said?
Look.
Ownership?
Yeah, it's true.
Control?
It's true.
No longer being able to decide what you want to do with your business?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm glad obviously I'm joking around. I think you got... Anyone listening to this, you have to really think through what it means to take outside money, because it means you're giving up control. And for some entrepreneurs, that will not be a problem because they really want to get off the ground. And for others that may have access to resources and capital, even if it's not at the scale that the venture capitalists have it, for some others, it'll be like, you know what, I'll just grow slow and steady because I don't want to give up any authority. I don't want to give up control. I don't want to have to be accountable to a numbers guy or someone who doesn't really have a passion for what I'm trying to do, especially if your venture is something that is not just entrepreneurial, but maybe philanthropic in nature as well. Like you're trying to make a difference someplace, right? So,
I agree.
So those are very, very important points. I'm glad you pointed that out. So now getting a little bit more into like the nuts and bolts of this stuff, right? So let's fast forward. So you have your business, whether you got venture capital money or not, and it's operating, right? Now you got to like, how do I scale this? How do I measure this? How do I build this thing beyond what it is now? Because you don't have an incubator, you don't have an accelerator, but you got 3 or 4 of your friends and you guys all understand the key components of the business. Now you want to grow it, but you got to measure it to grow it, right? So walk me through some of the customary tactics to evaluate and forecast the future of the business, right?
So it's a hard question, but the other piece before we get off the venture part, you don't need venture money if you're making money, if you're making revenue, if you're actually selling your product and you're selling your service, you can make and you can grow your business and feed your business from that money.
It's not that simple. I mean, you could be making money, but hand to mouth. I mean, you know, because I can relate to that. Like you can, that there's that gap between, hey, I could feed myself, but only 1 meal a day. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
ramen.
Top ramen. Like I actually do want to eat a little bit more than So I just want to be clear because you're right. You could do it on your own, but it could get ugly sometimes if you don't have a strategy that's going to yield even more resources in the short term.
Well, you're going to be strapped for resources regardless. It really actually doesn't matter even if you do have VC money. Like you have to spend that money very strategically, right? And you're not going to ask for just the amount that you need right now. And typically, again, this is something that we found in the Black and brown communities is because we're trying to just be thankful for whatever we get as opposed to understanding our true value and the value of our business. We only get the money that we need right now as opposed to what we need to grow it 2, 3, 5 years out.
So that's like, so you would consider that like a mistake we often make.
Agreed.
Not thinking far enough ahead.
Yes.
Interesting. Just taking what we can get and not.
But that's also a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So scaling.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to scale a business, right? Like you can scale a business by putting more money into your marketing efforts. One of the things that you have to really identify are what are your revenue drivers? So what's making you the most money? And what are your cost drivers? So what's costing you the most money? So say you put on, say for the ice cream truck, right? We decide as a company that we want to do a block party, right? And we're going to be there giving away this free ice cream and it's like a whole Saturday. That 8 hours that you're out there doing this block party, it's costing you resources, it's costing you time actually being like in your house, building your business, right? So even though it may have made you a lot of money, it also cost you a lot. So it may have been better for you to put those dollars into a digital campaign, for example. And it would have gotten maybe 5 times the eyeballs and views that maybe people wouldn't have bought that day, but next time you're gonna get 3-4 times the number of people showing up because they see you.
The concept of working smart, not hard, right?
Exactly.
Just being strategic about how you use your resources.
Yes.
Because all those promotional endeavors, although they may yield similar results, they're going to cost more.
Exactly.
In time, manpower, focus.
And even energy too. You have to think about like when you're an entrepreneur, you are hustling. Like every day is a grind. It really is. And so you have to manage that energy for yourself. Like I'm sure you have families and you want to take some time to rest so that you can rejuvenate and you don't burn out. But yeah, I think the biggest part about scaling a business is really understanding what's making you the most money. Once you understand like what the market demand is and how people are using your product or your service, then you can end up deciding, am I going to put more money into marketing, or maybe I'm going to grow out my business development team. So I'm going to get a salesperson on board and have them do the work so that I can start to look at all the metrics and see how, again, like what's driving what and how to keep pushing. So maybe I'm out here making strategic partnerships while this salesperson is managing these other parts of the business to then grow that.
Okay. Well, let's move into the second phase because we spent a lot of time laying the groundwork, and I think that was really important, and I'm really glad you went into that level of detail because this for some people this is really a challenging space to understand, those who don't do business. So let's talk a little bit about what the landscape is now, right? And kind of how to evaluate, what's currently happening and use it to our benefit, right? So let's see. So for those that think they have a healthy business, right, and want to, again, scale it up, and they're thinking about the things you just identified. Okay, so where are my costs? What's my revenue? How do I best manage that, right? But they're also thinking about, things like corporate boards, advisors, because we've heard of these things, right? You'll hear, oh, this person has XYZ on their board, and this person has an advisor, and this is what their, executive suite looks like. Like, to what degree are those directors and corporate boards and commissioning and evaluation of your business? How should one who's a novice at this, or an entrepreneur that just needs more help, how should they make sense of that, evaluate that? What should they be thinking about those things?
Yeah, so ground level starting, you should be going to as many networking events as you can and getting to know the people that are in this space, that are in the industry, listening to panels, watching people on YouTube, just the people that you see that are doing things really well, learn from them, right? There's that part. Once you start to create these relationships, you naturally tend to like gravitate toward a few people, right? Like, and I have that too. We call them our mentors. And, we tend to think sometimes, honestly, about mentors as somebody that has more power than us. And, it creates this dynamic, but it really doesn't have to be that way. It's just somebody that you're learning from. They just may have had more experience in that area than you. But you like them as a person and you want them to help guide you. They're more people than not, believe it or not, are willing to help and give free advice if you are going to be humble enough to listen. Like, you don't always have to take it, but learning and understanding the different parts of your business that you may not really know enough about will be helpful in bringing other people in.
So you're basically saying it's valuable to have advisors experienced in your business, even if they have no direct connection to your business.
Exactly. It's like a friend. It's how that's really like the basis of the tech industry, Silicon Valley, is relationships. And it's about who you know. We've heard that, getting a job, getting anything is really about who you know. But just being like really authentic in those relationships, like, networking events are just really uncomfortable from jump. And so going in, you know the value of your business. You also know what you don't know, and just be willing to just talk to people, and not be in a space of desperation of I need to find this.
But I also think, just piggybacking on your point, as you identify the players in your sector of business and identify the forums that these people tend to occupy, being deliberate and strategic about the conversations with these people, because Absolutely. There is a level of marketing that their name lends to your organization, right? So it's one thing to have, Steve Jobs as a mentor. It's another thing to have him on your board of directors, right?
True.
It adds a whole level of credibility, or have him as an advisor. So again, I think we're in agreement that these are things that, entrepreneurs should be pursuing, right? To the degree it can be organic and it makes sense and it lines up with your business strategy. Now, what about the evaluation idea? Like, having someone, let's say this business has been around for 3-4 years, the ice cream truck, but no one's really ever assessed it. Like, when do you endeavor upon having your business professionally evaluated, so you can figure out how much is it really worth. What is it? I know you've done your own number crunching, but having a third party objectively analyze your business and give you to what degree is that relevant, and what does it cost to endeavor down that path?
So I think it can look a few different ways. Typically what I've seen in businesses that are at that level, they kind of know, like, they've been going through some growing pains and they feel like, I've hit a wall, like, I know I could be doing more, but I just don't know what that more is. You can get a consultant that you bring in, but also, like, going through the accelerator at that point could also be really valuable, because at that point, then you have a group of advisors basically coming in and poking holes into your business and saying, now make it stronger, now make it better. And it forces you to have to look at all the different possibilities. I
see. I'm going to make an analogy, right? So for the business that's been out, the ice cream parlor or the ice cream truck who's, been selling ice cream for the last 3-4 years up in, in Torrance, you know what I mean? And all the kids got cavities because they just love their ice cream so much, right? They probably think they're doing their thing, and they're like, oh man, we're hoping and praying that this thing will double in size. It sounds to me like it's worth it for them to get a physical, right? To get in diagnostic. Like, you take your car to get a diagnostic. Yeah. You go to the every once a year, you go to the doctor and you have them check everything out and see what's not operating right. Have someone, a professional, if you're not part of a venture capital incubator thing, have someone say, let me really go into this business with a fine-tooth comb and figure out what's working, what's not, so we can plug some holes. We can shore up the areas that potentially could be more profitable, and give you a relevant, critically examined point of view about your business in the marketplace, not in your head, but that's relevant in the street. You know what I mean? So, right?
Yeah, and I think taking a step back even before that, though, a lot of times when businesses get to that point, they may actually not even have certain parts of their businesses set up. So I know, like, a lot of the startups that I coach, they're successful businesses, but they don't even have, like, QuickBooks set up to help pay their bills, right? Or they don't, if they have, like, a couple part-time employees, being able to pay them on a regular basis other than just by check, right?
Okay.
So having somebody in to come and look at your business and say, how do I just develop this system? How do I put systems in place that help me grow it in a more organic way so I can, like, level up at 30,000 feet and take a look at what's happening across the entire business is always really helpful. And I found that, like, with a lot of startups, they don't even have those pieces in place.
Of course they don't. Yeah. Of course they don't.
Well, yeah, because you're just
trying to run and gun, and then you're making a mess in the process. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what does it cost to have someone come in like you or someone else to give them that critical analysis? What is that going to cost them, range-wise? I'm sure it depends on the size of the business and everything, but just generally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, it could go from a couple $100 to a couple grand, right? It just depends on if it's over a period of time or if it's like I'm going to spend an hour and I'm going to look at your books and I'll tell you something. So you can always find somebody that's within your price point.
Something else we totally skipped over, and I'm glad I'm going to come back to it now because I think it's relevant too for those people who are thinking like, you know what, I have my idea, I figured out the business, but I really need a business plan. And I don't know how to do that. And I need to get someone in here who can do it for me.
Yeah, you can hire somebody for that.
No, it's very easy, and it sounds very simple for those who do it and who are in this space, who you know 1,000 people to do it. But for the people on the outside, because we're all about the outsiders getting inside information, like, where would they begin to identify someone to do a business plan for them, and how much should they be prepared to spend to get that plan created?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the business plan, you always need a business plan if you're going to pitch to somebody, right? To show people what you have.
I would even say, even if you're not, even if you need, because when you agree that you need to understand your business,
right,
yeah,
you're right. But even putting those pieces together,
okay.
I mean, it ranges, right? Like, first of all, like, you find those people again through networking and asking people like, look, I have this great idea, but I need help with a business plan, putting this together. it's pretty expensive to have somebody come in and do it. Usually it starts like around $5,000. It can go up to 10 grand. And I know that sounds like it's really scary, you know? And so when you think about putting that together, you can still go out in the marketplace and not have a business plan, and develop it as you go along,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If you can't afford it. So there's different ways to get around that.
Now, but is there an organization, a company you can identify that would probably be a great place to start to identify? Like, for example, look, and this is not what I do, but the National Association of MBAs, right? Like they have an annual meeting. I don't know if you have to be an MBA to attend, but I'm thinking that's probably a great place to start to meet some business people.
Absolutely.
So are there other organizations and forums like that you'd say, if you live in Minnesota, you're in Utah, wherever you're in Brooklyn, go to that thing because that would be a great place to start? Is there something like that comes to mind?
Not off the top of my head. I can always send it to you and you can put it in the notes for the show. But yeah, anything that has to do with business, like you can even go to meetups, right? Like there are business meetups, like starting your own business. Like Google, you can find anything on Google, but you can also put in like, most well-known conferences for business people or in technology or in the beauty industry or in the ice cream industry.
In essence, I think you've identified you got to be resourceful and you need to just be a self-starter in that space. And it's not going to, some of this stuff may not be at your fingertips if you're not in the right markets and in the right places. But before we run out of time, I just want to make sure I ask you one or two last questions. So you're in the market, you've kind of seen, a lot of big companies scale and also probably big companies collapse. Same with small companies. So what would you say would be some of the emerging business opportunities, especially people of color right now? And then also, what would you say would be some of the missteps folks who are Black and brown make when trying to either build a business or scale a business?
Yeah, so what I've seen as far as emerging technologies, blockchain is huge. I still don't even completely understand it just because it's been around since I think 2009.
We did an episode on blockchain, You got to watch the show.
I'm going to have
Lisa,
to check
you got to watch
that
the
out.
show.
What am I doing?
We playing games here with Lyft drivers. You got to watch the show.
Clearly.
No, I'm just teasing you.
But yeah, blockchain is huge, and even the cannabis industry right now is the wild, wild west. There's so little regulation on it that even if you're not in the growing aspect of it, there are these businesses that surround it that are a part of the ecosystem, the industry ecosystem that you can be a part of. So there's a lot of interesting things just happening in tech. I also see tech starting to go more toward the social innovation piece. So things that are businesses that are helping identify and solve social issues.
Interesting.
So yeah, there's a lot of things, and when we talk social issues, it could be things that focus specifically on communities of color. Even just to trying to get them into these spaces is really big. It's a big conversation happening right now. So that is also such a big opportunity for us as a community to just get in where we fit in and really just make a name and make a lane for ourselves. And
servicing a need is a great way to build a business. And then again, anything that we tend to always do wrong.
We'll figure it out.
No, but there's nothing that we always get wrong. It's okay. It's all right.
Sure.
Well, you identified one thing. You said, look, oftentimes we don't get enough money up front. We don't think far enough ahead.
Yeah.
Any other patterns that you tend to see with our businesses?
I think we tend to disqualify ourselves walking in the room because nobody else looks like us. And we put ourselves in this state of we are seeking instead of coming to the table with value.
I love that.
I
love that. Seeking instead of coming to the table with value.
Where's my metric?
I'm trying to get it. Metric. I love the way you redefine the pull up. Yeah, the gunshot. Let me get my metric gunshot. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, but that's brilliant. It's exactly right.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because sometimes we don't know that we walk into a room doing that to ourselves and that we limit ourselves.
But people can smell that and they can see
Absolutely.
that, and they respond to it, not to our advantage.
Yeah.
So
that's real.
Well, listen, anything you want to promote, talk about for our viewers going on with you? Anything you have your hands in right now?
I mean, I have my hands in a lot of stuff, but I'm like super low key about it.
Oh, okay,
I kind of gotta be about the clients that I'm at. But no, I mean, I'm on Instagram. You can get me there. I'm also a startup consultant.
Well, mention your hashtag. Your handle.
Well, I was gonna if you were gonna let me get there.
Excuse me. I'm just trying to help.
I'm trying to give my whole spiel.
All right, go ahead. Hey, you gotta do your thing.
It's just at Lisa Atia.
At Lisa Atia. That's easy.
Name. Yeah.
At LISA
ATIA. Thank you.
At Instagram, and then you have it on all platforms or just Instagram?
Yeah.
Twitter,
all platforms. Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. Great.
Yep.
Well, Lisa, thank you again for coming in. You did a great job, and can't wait to translate this to Arabic. You know what I mean? For my folks in the Middle East.
I'd like to see that.
Listen, see, you're not believing in me. I'm coming at you with faith and confidence, and you just shut me down. That's the problem. Maybe because I'm not as light as you. That's what it is, right? No, but it was great having you here. We got a part 2 coming up, don't we? So
we sure do.
Yeah. So anyway, this is good. Exactly. So tune in for the next episode of Brooklyn Boardroom. Find us on Apple TV, not Apple TV. I'm sorry, on iTunes, Google Play, coming soon. Find me YouTube at BK Boardroom, and then just holler at me if you see me in the street.